speaking of really good taste in talent, Russell T Davies announced a couple of days ago a brand new cast member for Series 14 of Doctor Who, BAFTA alumni, a BAFTA winner from this year, in fact, Lenny Rush joining the cast of Doctor Who for Series 14. Make way for Morris. Having just won a BAFTA at the age of 14, Lenny Rush's stardom is once again about to go out of this world as he takes on the role of Morris in the new series of Doctor Who, starring alongside Ncuti Gatwa. Lenny has starred in numerous shows, including Dodger and A Christmas Carol, but it was his starring role in Daisy May Cooper's Am I Being Unreasonable that won him the BAFTA for Best Male Performance in a Comedy Programme this year. Now, Lenny is about to join the team, travelling time and space as he takes on his new role as Morris. There's an awesome picture there, looking great in the suit and the bow tie, on a Segway as well. For those of you who don't know about Lenny Rush, we'll get to that in a moment. Speaking about joining Doctor Who, Lenny said, "It's an absolute honour to be part of Doctor Who, one of the most iconic shows on television, and wow, what a dream come true." Showrunner Rusty Davis said, "This is what Doctor Who's all about, brand new talent from the next generation, and no one's more talented than Lenny. He joins the TARDIS team just in time for the Doctor's greatest nightmare, so hold on tight." The wording in this makes it sound like he might be a companion. Now, we did see some rumours from tabloids who are trying to discredit the idea, the very notion of doing such a thing, but the idea that the redesigned TARDIS would be wheelchair accessible, as in it would have ramps as opposed to steps, so that wheelchairs, or in this case, potentially a Segway, would be able to get around it. So obviously I think just having a wheelchair-friendly TARDIS is just a good thing as like a principle, but having somebody like Wilf in the 60th anniversary specials who is in a wheelchair, we've seen from the location filming, and also Lenny Rush in his Segway as Morris, potentially being, if not a full-blown companion for a few episodes, but at least travels in the TARDIS for a bit, which would be really, really cool. I think that kind of, where there's smoke, there's fire, in terms of the evidence. Bowtie might be a Time Lord. That's true. No other species on Earth could possibly get away with fashion choices this audacious. But anyway, so who is Lenny Rush? So Lenny is a 14-year-old child star, recently won a BAFTA for Am I Being Unreasonable? Like they mentioned there, he was in Dodger. He also won some Royal Television Society awards. He was born in 2009 when David Tennant was still the Doctor. So if that doesn't make you feel super duper old, then I don't know what will. So the reason he's got the Segway is because he has, and I'm going to butcher the name, so I apologise, he's got spondylopiphyseal dysplasia congenita, abbreviated to SED for short, which is a bone disorder which affects the growth of the bones, so it affects the growth of the spine, and results in dwarfism. So he is, for all intents and purposes, a young disabled actor. And of course, when I saw the casting announcement and went into the comment sections, there was an awful lot of, oh no, just there's a box tick, it's diversity, from all the stupid people out there, okay, for who just see people with disabilities as like subhuman, but even though it's clear projection, they hate themselves. Lenny Rush is an incredibly talented young man. So if you've seen the recent BAFTA awards ceremony where he rolled up on stage in the Segway in a full-blown tux and everything and claimed his award, most charming kid ever. I first saw him when he was doing some comic relief or like sports relief sketches with a bunch of celebrities, and this guy's comedic timing, his natural improvisation skills are second to none at such an early age. Dude's really, really cool, and I think he's got an incredibly bright future ahead of him, and I'm glad that Russ T Davies has been able to get somebody who's not, clearly young, clearly super talented, but also pretty high profile, a star that's on the rise right now. Because Lenny Rush is like, a year or two ago, most people would not have heard of him. But after the BAFTA win, after the charity appearances he's done, he's becoming a bit of a household name, particularly at the BBC. When you see like clips of Lenny Rush like go viral on social media, even though, as far as I'm aware, Lenny Rush does not have a social media online profile, like he's 14, in many cases that wouldn't be legal for him to have on his own. So that makes sense. But clips of him go viral, hundreds of thousands, millions of views across the world. So this is just an incredibly smart decision. And I don't want to do the cynical, big numbers, so therefore good. But, you know, the stars are aligning here. And I think it's great for Russell to seize on that opportunity and get somebody like Lenny Rush in Doctor Who. When you combine all of these casting announcements from Bonnie Langford, Lenny Rush, Jinx Monsoon, even Millie Gibson in Children in Need, for example, Indira Varma, etc., you get this really great cumulative effect where, like, even if you've got some imaginary demographic who is both Lenny Rush's, Jinx Monsoon's, Bonnie Langford, Indira Varma, and Millie Gibson's number one fan, for some reason, like, that pentagram of fandom, I don't know if such a person exists, but the overlap and the crossover between these talents' public profiles are converging on Doctor Who Series 14. That's exciting. That's really cool. And in light of that, what I wanted to do is do a quick presentation of what we know so far about Doctor Who Series 14 to sort of take stock. Now, we do know that they're currently in Block 5 of filming Series 14. They have about a month left of filming right now, and a lot of things have been announced publicly, a few things have not, which we'll go over, but I do have a little document here. So, Doctor Who Series 14, what we know so far. It's coming from Bad Wolf Studios. Russ T. Davies is the showrunner, producers, Julie Gardner, Jane Tranter, Phil Collinson. Murray Gold is returning as composer. Andy Pryor is returning as casting director as well. Andy Pryor is responsible for the casting of every Doctor and every companion since the show came back in 2005. The script editor is Scott Hancock, who has spent years at Big Finish Productions. He also has a monthly write-up, a monthly article at every Doctor Who magazine, which has been very, very informative for the purposes of this segment. And the editor, William Oswald, or one of the editors at least, William Oswald is returning, his last editing credit for Doctor Who being from Twice Upon a Time. This is the absolute Giga Chad who edited Heaven Sent. The VFX producer is Will Cohen, who is the co-founder of Milk, which is a visual effects company. He's now working for Bad Wolf, but Milk did the VFX for Sherlock, for Doctor Who in 2014-2015, for the films Annihilation, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, etc., etc., the Divergent series, The Martian, etc. The post-production producer is Cerise Doyle, and I've got a little note here, The Sarah Jane Adventures, The Curse of Clyde Langer. So, I've put that note down because there was a really interesting write-up in Doctor Who magazine where they were talking about how the Sarah Jane Adventures was put back on the BBC iPlayer. However, the only episodes not to be there were The Curse of Clyde Langer because those files had a big note on them saying do not upload for offensive material. Russ T. Davies looked into it and realised that the totem poles that were depicted in The Curse of Clyde Langer were basically culturally insensitive the way that they were depicted in that show. So the BBC would just like, don't put this on the iPlayer. So they thought, okay, let's maybe do some editing to get rid of these things. However, Sarah Jane Adventures does not have a budget anymore for the fact that it's not been in production for about 10 years. However, we've got Cerise Doyle, who is the post-production producer on Doctor Who was also the editor of The Curse of Clyde Langer, so did some unpaid overtime a couple of months ago, working very, very hard to remove the totems from those two episodes so it could go on the iPlayer. So that's a little story within the story, but yeah. And costume designer is Pam Down. We do know that we're going to be getting a 2023 festive special directed by Mark Tonderay, who directed from Series 11, Rosa and the Ghost Monument, which is terrific stuff. We have 8 episodes confirmed with 5 production blocks, which are distinguished by their 5 directors. The aforementioned Mark Tonderay, Julianne Robinson, Ben Chessel, Dylan Holmes Williams, and Jamie Donahue. We also know that the episodes 7 and 8 are a 2-part finale. Russ T. Davies is confirmed to be writing the festive special, episode 4, episode 7, and I've put asterisks on episode 1 and episode 8 because I don't think there's any way that Russ T. Davies, the showrunner, is not writing the first and the last episode. We do know that they are currently filming Block 5, which is 7 and 8, due to Jamie Donahue being the one on location. It's going to be broadcast on BBC One in the United Kingdom and Ireland around, let's say, April or May 2024. and it's going to be streaming on Disney Plus internationally. Whether or not they do a simulcast or something day and date with BBC One in the United Kingdom and Ireland remains unknown. We do not know who is writing episodes 2, 3, 5, and 6, and we do not have any episode names, any episode titles yet. But like I said, we do know that 7 and 8 are a two-parter. The casting, we've got these two. We've got Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor and Millie Gibson as companion Ruby Sunday. We have got, now, Lily, this is when you tell me about the name pronunciations. We've got Arwen Barnard playing Roger Ap Gwilliam. We do not know exactly who this person is. Presumably a villain. We do know from some leaked on-location footage that he appears to be a politician. We also know that Ap is Welsh for son of, so son of Gwilliam. But apart from that, we do not know. But we've seen that he is trying to lead some sort of political campaign for Albion. Bigger, better, bolder Britain. That's all we know. And Oirin Barnard. Thank you, Fist of Fury. If that... You think you're going to let me go on live stream and mispronounce all these names based on what you think? Oh, dear. Oh, this is the cross I carry. This is the burden I have to bear. Anyway, this person we know is going to be playing a political figure in the next series of Doctor Who. We also know that Gemma Redgrave is returning as Kate Stewart. She was most recently seen in The Power of the Doctor. She's been in the 50th anniversary. She first appeared in Series 6 in The Power of 3, written by Chris Chibnall. This was confirmed a day or two after she was spotted on location with Millie Gibson, a conversation where they were both talking outside in a restaurant in the pouring rain, and apparently Ruby Sunday walks away from the conversation. And then a day later, these casting announcements were made official. Next up, we've got Michelle Greenedge plus Anita Dobson, who are playing unknown roles in the series. Rusty Davis had the cryptic hint, what is the significance of the doors? So these blue doors here. No idea. Next up, Jinx Monsoon, famed drag performer, recently just completed a run on Broadway as Mama Morton from Chicago. She's playing a major role and the Doctor's most powerful enemy yet. According to an interview that dropped yesterday from the Radio Times, Jinx Monsoon has not started filming yet. Now, they've had test screenings, they've had wardrobe checks and publicity stills, for example, but according to Jinx in an interview with the Radio Times, not started filming yet. They're only in Block 5, which, as we have established up here, is episodes 7 and 8, the finale. Jamie Donohue's doing this. So unless there's some wild reshoots happening from blocks 1 to 4, but we saw on location, was that actually filming, or was it standing in, or were they just making their way to water? You could be right. I'm just going with what the Radio Times interview published yesterday said. Maybe it's an old quote. Either way, I'm just going with what's there. If Jinx Monsoon has not started filming yet, it stands to reason that Jinx is the villain in the finale of Series 14, playing the Doctor's most powerful enemy yet. Chibnall wrote Downtime. Oh, don't you dare try and say that Downtime is canon, but you are correct. Downtime, which was how do I explain Downtime? A fan production that was unofficially not licensed by the BBC in the 1990s, established that the Brigadier, who was played by Nicholas Courtney, did have a daughter called Kate. Okay, so Kate Stewart in the modern era, played by Gemma Redgrave, established in Series 6, but has its origins in Downtime. Now, she's already been spotted filming. Fair enough. I'm just going with what Jinx Monsoon said in an interview published yesterday. Maybe there's some wires crossed. Either way. Next, we've got Jonathan Groff here on the left. Now, we know that this is going to be a period episode. Note to the dressing. And that this is in block 4 of filming, which appears to have 2 separate episodes. An episode set in the 1960s, which may have some Abbey Road Beatles connections, as well as a episode set in whatever time period this is. Episodes 2 and 6, directed by Ben Chessel here. So Whether or not this is episode 2 or episode 6, we don't know yet. We do know, however, this is likely the same episode that Indira Varma is playing the Duchess, who Rusty Davies established in an interview is playing the villain. You're hiding behind the sofa from the Duchess. Well, the audiences are hiding behind the sofa from the Duchess. Indira Varma is not playing Susie Costello, previously from Torchwood, Series 1, where in the very first episode she shot herself in the head and then came back a few episodes later thanks to the Resurrection Gauntlet, and has subsequently also been revived in the expanded media. She's been in Big Finish, etc. They may draw a connection, kind of like they did with Eve Miles as Gwen in the end of Series 4, you know, an old Cardiff family, you know, born a child of the Rift, etc. But yeah, going to be playing the Duchess. Next up, Bonnie Langford, also in Block 5 of filming, episodes 7 and 8, returning as Melanie Bush, the Doctor Who companion, from seasons 23 and 24, with the 6th and 7th Doctors respectively, and also had a cameo appearance at the end of The Power of the Doctor. Now, how on earth Mel gets from Ice World with Sabalom Glitz millions of years in the future to modern-day contemporary Earth is a question for another time, and I would respect it if they never even brought up what on earth happened. Anyway, and lastly, in terms of official big casting announcements, we've got Lenny Rush as Morris. He joins the TARDIS team just in time for the Doctor's greatest nightmare. We also do have some other casting announcements. For example, this is Bhav Joshi, Haley Lone, Pete McHale, Miles Yekeni, and Hemi Yeraham, as well as several others. For example, there was an actor who was recently in the Big Finish Solitary Confinement War Master set, who was also announced to be in the series in a minor supporting role, along with these folks, but we can't go through all of them, plus there's a bunch of CV leaks, but these are basically the big casting announcements that we've had since filming began in late December. They've got about a month left of filming. Here's some official statements that we've got, some piecemeal clues. Episode 4, apparently, is, quote, one of the greatest things I've ever made in my life. I'm very, very happy with it. A quote from Murray Gold. Series 14 had scripts with, quote, musical environments. Block 4, which is episode 2 or episode 6, which encompasses the 1960s, potentially Abbey Road episode, quote, has a lot of music in it. The big one here, I think this is the smoking gun. Scene 10 of episode 2 starts with Interior Canteen Day. I'll let you folks speculate about that. Block 3 filming, quote, involved a cast of 9 babies at Wolf Studios. There's a little tidbit from Scott Hancock. Rusty Davies, who once, like I said, much like Scott, has got a monthly write-up in Doctor Who magazine, which has been very, very fun to go through for the purposes of the segment. Someone in Star Trek Picard suddenly said one of our episode titles out loud. We don't know what, but still. And Jinx's first day on set teams her with an unexpected name from the Tom Baker era. Quote from Scott Hancock. This is all we know. Is it Fendal? Is it the Wirren? Is it Leela? Is it Susan Foreman? Because they technically appeared in a Tom Baker story because Susan was in the 5 Doctors. Anyway, right. Who knows? Is it Field Major Steyer from the Sontaran? It could be anyone. Very vague, but very exciting. And in terms of stuff that we've seen filming on location, we saw this weird worm thing wandering around the streets of Cardiff, eating people up. Don't know. The 1960s filming, this is an official photo, but we have seen them on Abbey Road. Now, this is actually a street in Cardiff that's been dressed up to look like Abbey Road, with the crossing there as well. We've seen some filming footage leaked from location of the Doctor and Ruby running across this iconic crossing, as famously depicted in British iconography of the front cover of the Beatles' Abbey Road album. And that's that. In terms of official stuff, not like, forget leaks or whatever, forget rumours and speculation, including but not limited to the leaked interior of the TARDIS, which allegedly leaked a few months back, which I've not shown on livestream just out of pure respect. I believe that's it. We also, like I said, we had the We did have the Albion stuff, which is being filmed around the same time as the big worm thing. Whether or not they're the same episode or just the same block, who knows? But yeah, that's kind of all we know so far. There may be a couple of other names, like there are like location managers and runners and third ADs and stuff. But in terms of the big like above the line creative decisions, that's kind of all we've got so far. We're still waiting for these gaps to be filled in terms of writers, and we've also got episode names that need to be filled in as well. But yeah, that's kind of all we know so far. If you can think of anything else from June 20th, 2023 that I have missed, please let me know. Apart from the TARDIS leak. No new Daleks spotted yet, considering they're meant to have a redesign. Now, the brand new production designer, whose name escapes me right now, I'll have to double check, did say that the most exciting thing that he was looking forward to for Series 14 of Doctor Who was redesigning the Daleks. Now, that could have been interpreted as a broad statement, as I'm looking forward to doing it when we get round to it, as opposed to, yes, I'm doing that for Series 14. I think there's a bit of wiggle room there. But yeah, when you're thinking they'll start announcing the writers, I think that, like, we only know that episode 4 is written by Russ T Davies because of that interview he gave where he said it's the best thing he's ever written. They're not obligated to announce the writers. I have a feeling that if it was like a big name, like Stephen Moffat, or Charlie Brooker, or Jed Mercurio, or Sally Wainwright, for example, I have a feeling they would have announced it by now, which leads to me to either think that they are deliberately withholding this information until much later down the line, or it's Russell for the most part, and maybe one or two up-and-coming writers, or writers without as large a profile. For example, please not Moffat. I'm just using him as an example, but I have a feeling that if it was like a Stephen Moffat, basically a name where you know of the writer, even if you're not fond of their work or have watched their work. Like, I think in the UK, it's reasonable to have never watched Line of Duty, but to know who Jed Mercurio is. To never watch Black Mirror, but to know about Charlie Brooker. You know who I think would be really, really cool? Jodie Hauser. I don't know. This has just come off the cuff. It would be really cool if Jodie Hauser, who had a great run of 13th Doctor comics, including Fugitive Doctor comics as well, which have been pretty well received. I think that she'd be a really cool get. I don't know what her experience is outside of comics, if any, but I think obviously, I wouldn't propose Jodie Hauser being the next showrunner or anything, not without getting several TV credits under her belt, just for the sake of just common sense here. Like, let's not get a comic book writer and then immediately TV showrunner. I think there needs to be a process there. But Jodie Hauser, I think, has more than earned her dues to write a TV Doctor Who script, if she wants to do that. If I was Russell or working at Bad Wolf, and the secretary says you got Jodie Hauser on line 1, I'd definitely take the call. I'd drop everything I'm doing and take the call.